How do you get more out of everything you do? Like, who am I talking to that would just love to get a little bit more? And as you see, I'm not just using these bands to illustrate a point. I'm really getting my workout in during my lunch hour. But it is important to see that this is a different kind of workout. This is called a stretch band. It's a resistance band. And if you're going to give more, you're going to have to be willing to be stretched. And then that takes me back to Pastor Battle's message of generosity. Because in order to get more, you got to give more. But how do you do that? Like, honestly, it's not easy to work out. It's not always fun. It doesn't always feel good. There's a law of reciprocity that says you reap what you sow. And so if you don't put much in, you're not going to get much out. But the question is, how do I give more when my funds are tight, my time is tight, but in 2021, I'm looking to do more? Well, I want to give you two motivations, because that's what you're going to need. In order to give more, you're going to need to be motivated. I don't feel like getting up in the morning. I don't feel like eating right. I don't feel like always living right. That's why no matter what you do, you have to come back to your motivation. You have to come back to your why. You got to read it, review it, repeat it, recite it. You got to come back to why am I giving more? Well, on Sunday we talked about generosity, meaning noble birth. If you follow Christ, it's in your DNA to be a giver. And one of the reasons that was highlighted that we ought to give more is because in order to give, we had to receive. In order to give more, God had to give it to us to give to others. But as I looked at the passage again, the message itself motivated me, because I went back to Acts chapter 20, and I found a couple of more motivations that I want to highlight. It gets kind of to the root of why is Paul even having a conversation about generosity. The message on Sunday can be summed up this way: it's better to give than it is to receive. Can I go to my original question? Why should I give more? How can I give more? I said you must be motivated. You must be willing to be stretched in order to give more. And if somebody's going to stretch you, they got to give you a compelling reason to go through something in order to produce something. The law of reciprocity says what? It simply says you reap what you sow. What you get out is what you put in. You put little in, you get little out. And so I want to highlight two reasons. I'm gonna tell you the reasons right off the bat. Number one, you want to give more. Here's the motivation: because when you give more, you get more out of life. Giving more gives you life. The second reason you want to give more is because it protects us from being consumed with self. Let me explain this first one, that motivation that I said. That this idea that if I give more, I get more out of life. I watched my kids on Christmas Day as I gave them gifts, particularly gifts that they really had their heart on. They came to life. It blessed them. They were smiling. It was full of cheer. My reward was their joy. It cost me, but the benefit was the smile that was on their face. When I looked at Acts chapter 20, this was the passage Pastor Battle preached out of on Sunday. If you didn't see the message, go online, zionlandover.com, and look at our archives, and you'll see on demand, you'll see the message called Generosity. Anyway, when I went back to Acts chapter 20, I specifically looked at verse 32. This was the verse that preceded the passage that he taught from. In other words, it's better to give than to receive. And the question was why? In verse 32, it says, "And now I entrust you to God and the message of his grace that is able to build you up and give you an inheritance with all he has set apart from himself." Do you hear the motivation? The motivation for giving, and the reason why it's better to give than it is to receive, because when you give life, you get life. You're not just giving a gift. Whenever you hand something to someone, be it your time, be it your talent, be it your cash, and it's meeting a need. It's not just a gift. It's a message of God's goodness. So whenever I give you something, it causes someone to recognize that, man, God must be really good to you in order for you to give that much to me. The more that I give to you, it says not only is it a message of God's grace, and God's grace is awfully good. The reason I give is because God's grace to me, considering what I really deserve, is abundantly good. But it also points to an inheritance I have with my relationship with Christ. The inheritance, when I give life, it causes people to be attracted to God. It makes them want to have the relationship that I share. My inheritance is so good. Somebody says, well, how do I get in the family? How can I be connected? The reason why I want to give more, because the more I give, the more that it will bring people to the message of grace, and the more it will make people attracted to the family of God. The more that I give, the more that people will hear the message of grace, and the more will attract people to the family of God. I'm going to say it again. The more I give, the more it will draw people to the message of grace and attract them to the family of God. Do you see how that changes? It's not just to give. It's not just to give to receive. But the more I give, the more people get to hear the message of God's goodness to me, His grace in my life, and the more they are attracted to the family of God. Oh, that's a different reason. I may not feel like it, but when I think about that reason will make me stretch. It'll make me go through some stuff. It'll make me press my way even when I don't feel like it, because I went back to the issue of why. Okay, so y'all got the first motivation. Let me go back to the top. Remember the whole issue with giving more. Everybody wants more. Well, how do I get more? I got to give more. Well, how do I do that? I need motivation. So I gave you a motivation. You get more out of life. It's this message of grace and attraction to God's family. The second thing I said is that it protects us against being over consumed with ourselves. The most miserable people in the world are people who are consumed with themselves. Their whole life revolves around him. That's not royal DNA. That's a generosity killer. As I start thinking about this message of generosity, I came across this piece by Tupac. You remember the prolific rapper Tupac Shakur, and he was talking about God and the church. And I want to let this roll for a couple of minutes. Check this out.
The Bible was telling us all these people did this because they suffered this much. That's what makes them special people. Right. I got shot 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know what I mean? And I got crucified to the media. You know what I mean? We turn money. We turn words into money. You know what I mean? What greater gift can there be? So I believe God blesses us. I believe God blesses those that hustle, those that use their mind, and those that overall are righteous. I believe that your karma, everything that you do bad comes back to you. So anything that I'm doing that's bad, I'm going to have to suffer for it. But in my heart, I think what I'm doing is right. You know what I mean? So I feel like I'm going to heaven. If the churches took half the money that they was making and gave it back to the community, we'd be all right. If they take half the buildings that they use to praise God and gave it to need God, we'd be all right. We be all right. Have you seen some of the churches lately? It's ones that take up the whole block in New York. It's homeless people out here. Why ain't God letting them stay there? Why got gold ceilings? God need gold ceilings to talk to me? Why do God need colored windows to talk to me? Why God can't come where I'm at, where He sent me? If God wanted to talk to me in a pretty spot like that, why send me here then? You know what I mean? That make ghetto kids not believe in God.
This is not a new message. Where's the money going in the church? Man, the church, he talked about how grand the churches are and how opulent they are, and how that money can be given to the poor. And He was giving his views about God. And it brought me back to Acts chapter 20. It brought me back to this message of generosity. It brought me back to why is Paul talking about generosity in the first place, where it's not only about it's better to give to receive, because it's going to draw people to this message of grace and get them attracted to the family of God. But this really was a countermeasure against something that all of us will struggle with because we're in the flesh, we're humans. It's natural to be consumed with self. And when Tupac began to talk, it raised verse 30 of Acts chapter 20, it raised this conversation Paul was having before he jumped into generosity. He said, even some men from your own group will rise up and distort the truth in order to draw a following. Even men from your own group will rise up and distort the truth in order to draw a following. As I listened to Tupac, while he raised it could be some convincing arguments about, why would you give to God? Why would you give to the church? Where's the money going? That whole old narrative. Here's the question I have. If you're not giving to God and his work, where is your money going? This is the oldest trick in the book. This is a motivation that Satan comes in and he will pay someone, give them a platform, and let them give what seems to be a compelling argument. Generally speaking, people are only giving 10% of their income to the church, generally speaking. And most people are not doing that. Let's just be honest, particularly Tupac. But you can become so focused on the 10% that you never ask yourself about the 90. Where is the rest of your money going? If it's not supporting the initiatives, the things that bring people attention to the message of God's grace and the inheritance we have with Jesus Christ, where's the money going? The thing that I struggle with as I listen to this classic argument that Tupac presents is, where does that leave you and I at the end of his rant?
We turn words into money.
Matter of fact, I came across the dwellings of Cardi B and Rick Ross. These homes can take up a block. Each one of them gets paid to give a message. If people don't buy their message, then they can't have that lifestyle. And so my question is, should their homes be better than God's home? We're just talking message to message. And I'm not even getting into the money. Everybody has a perspective about it. It's just the principle that if you're not directing your giving, your time, your energy, your talent, your resources to point to God, then by default, all of your resources are consumed by who? You. And guess who else? The world. Can I go back to verse 30 again? It says, even some of your own men, from your own group rather, will rise up and distort the truth in order to draw a following. So it's a tricky and classic move to distort the truth so that people can say, let's stop investing in the things that promote God, so that we can invest, watch this, 100% of our resources to make their lifestyles better. Everybody is following a message, and that message will produce a desire to give more or to consume more. As we go into 2021, I just want us to be able to receive more. And the key to getting more is giving more. And in order to give more, you got to be more motivated. Why? Because as you saw at the beginning of this, being stretched isn't comfortable. I don't feel like doing it, but I got to come back to my why. What are two reasons? What are two whys why we ought to give more? Because when you give more, you get more out of life. You're not just giving a gift, you're giving a message of God's grace. His goodness to you is what Tupac left out. The reason I give is because God has been so good to me that I can't help but give. But as I give, it also attracts people to this inheritance that I have with Jesus Christ. Man, what will possess you to give this? Man, I am telling you, I'm part of a family that so satisfies me that I'm willing to let go of stuff to be a blessing to you. But the second very important motivation, if I'm not giving to you, then it's all about me. That, forget the 10%, 100% goes to me. And here's the slick move. It ain't just going to me. Media is dictating what I spend my money on. It's going to tell me what I drive. It's going to tell me what kind of shoes I wear. It's going to tell me to buy jewelry. Do you see Tupac's contradiction? I'm sorry, I don't want to stay there too long, but it's a contradiction because everybody's buying a message. The question is, who does the message help and what does the message point you to? And what's motivating you? I'm motivated because if I don't give a portion of what I got, not just my cash, my time, my energy, my talent, if it doesn't go to God first, then the world gets 100% of it. And that's the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. If remember I talked about the law of reciprocity, it's killing life. When you're not giving, you're not growing. And anything that doesn't grow doesn't live. Well, I hope that blessed you as we close out 2021. I just wanted to thank Pastor Battle again for a great message on Sunday. Generosity is part of your DNA to be a giver. But remember, as you approach this new year, as you desire to give more, you got to have some strong motivations to make you get out of bed, to make you dig into your pockets, to make you spend time with people that you don't really feel like spending time with. And what is it again? It's the message of grace and the inheritance. I'm in a relationship with a king. So I give because I got it. But it also protects me from being overconsumed. So I'm not distorted. I'm not distorting the truth of what life is all about. Life is not about me consuming. In order to get life, I got to give it. God bless. Happy New Year. And let's make 2021 an incredible year because we've all been extremely generous and God has really, really been good.